Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Gani ni picha?
Naam.
Kuna kitu nakumbuka.
Kitu gani?
Unajua?
Naam.
Katika dini yetu ya Kiislamu kuna sahaba mmoja aitwa Hamza.
Hamza si ndio wewe bana?
Si mimi naye. Hamza maanisha kama vile wasema rafiki. Yaani watu waliokuwa karibu na mtume wetu Muhammad.
Wala. Sasa kumbe ana nini Hamza?
Sasa siwajua Hamza ni somo wangu. Huyu Hamza alikuwa jamaa mmoja shupavu.
Okay.
Stadi katika vita. Sasa leo mimi nataka ni mwenzi nifae kama yeye.
Naona leo na saiki kweli kweli. Malizie hii ya mwisho basi.
Ndio leo na saiki Lakini tumalizia hapa.
Sawa basi, naona tuweza ondoka manake kiza kimetanda zaidi.
Kweli bro.
Alafu bro, na hichi kitambaa ndio vipi? Ukivui ama?
Bro, hapa vui mtu hapa mpaka nyumbani.
Sawa bana. Twenzetu.
Afande. Hebu angalia ile watu.
Afande. Hii watu si Al-Shabaab hii. Hebu angalia vile imevaa.
Na hii watu wanasumbua sana hii area.
Hebu twende.
Chino lizi.
Mikono juu.
Nini afande anafanya nini?
Shut up. Unalalamika nini naona Al-Shabaab?
Visi ya Shabaab jamani.
Hebu afande angalia mfuko inaweza kuwa na grenade katunipikia.
Shooting. Killing. Afande, hamna kitu ni maji tu. Tumeamua kukosa. Tutoroke.
No, wewe sasa Shabaab.
Daima tulikuwa marafiki wa damu, licha ya tofauti ya dini zetu, licha ya tofauti ya makabila yetu, bali tuliishi kama Wakenya na kama ndugu. Hamza hakuwa gaidi, bali alikuwa Mkenya mzalendo anayefuata dini yake.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and a very good evening. My name is Faisal, Kassim, and welcome to Live Real Talk. That skit is just one of the many activities that have been done in the past few weeks for as far as activism on extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances is concerned. That is just one of the many. So let's listen into an excerpt from the khutbah given today at the Jamia Mosque, Nairobi by Sheikh Ahmed, who is the Imam of Landis Mosque and a member of the Majlis Ulama of Jamia Mosque as well, which was actually followed by statement from Honorable Bilokero, former Mandera Senator, and also a committee member at the Jamia Mosque Committee in Nairobi. Let's listen in. Suleiman.
Tunaikumbusha serikali CAB 29, Bill of Right, Right of Freedom and Security, uhuru wa mtu kuishi katika nchi hii, aweze kupata ulinzi na usalama yeye na nafsi yake. Tunaikumbusha serikali Right of Arrested Person, haki ya mtu aliyeshikwa, haki ya mtu arrested aliyeshikwa. Kwa mtu yule ana sababu za kujulishwa kwa nini unashikwa. Mtu yule ana haki ya kujulishwa familia yake au wakili wake. Mtu yule ana haki ya kufikishwa kotini masaa 24 kabla hajahukumiwa.
Suleiman, can you listen into Sheikh Bilokero, that is from Mandera Senator? You can just play the video though briefly. Let's just listen to the introduction part of it, please. Suleiman.
Kwa hivyo hii statement ni statement ya Muslim leaders. Jamia Mosque Committee, Supreme Council, I think the chairman is here, Sheikh Hassan Olenando. NAMLEF, National Muslim Leaders Forum, I think the chairman is also here, Abdullahi Abdi. The Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, and the Muslim Lawyers League. So, nafikiri vile munaelewa, the last few weeks, kuna harakati mbalimbali hawa Muslim leaders wameweza kufanya kuhusu hayo mambo. I think kuna wakati mnajua waziwazi about 2-3 weeks ago, or a month ago, kuna wakati walienda mpaka kwa DCI, wakakaa na hao. Kuna the last 2 weeks we have seen the actions they have been taking, including about 2 days ago, pamoja na the Law Society of Kenya. Kwa hivyo nafikiri kuna harakati mbalimbali waliweza kuchukua kuhusu hizi disappearances ya wenzetu ambao Sheikh ametaja. Kwa hivyo kwa statement, this statement ambao ni statement wa hao leaders wote, this year 2021, Haki Africa ambao inahusika na mambo ya hizi extrajudicial killings na disappearances, wamedocument over 41 cases of abductions resulting in enforced disappearances. Watu ambao wametekwa nyara na wamepotea. The last 10 months of 2021. These figures exclude undocumented reports. Kuna reports mbalimbali ya watu ambao wamekuwa abducted, lakini they have not been reported by the relatives, kwa security forces ama kwa hizi organizations. It doesn't exclude these ones, and it does not exclude cases from northern parts of this country, kama vile Garissa, Mandera, Wajir. It doesn't even include those ones. Ambao it goes into hundreds if you take those ones into considerations. There's now strong evidence that it is not only the National Police Service that is involved in this.
Thanks so much, Suleiman of Tumbo, and that's just opening our conversation tonight about matters to do with enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. But again, in this context, it's something that we have spoken about more than once this year on this particular show. But tonight, we're taking a different angle to the whole discussion. And joining me tonight is Bwana Stephen Muau, who is the manager at Amnesty International on matters to do with freedom and citizenship manager at Amnesty International. That is Bwana Stephen Muau in studio. Virtually joining me is Dr. Halkano, who is an associate director at the Horn Institute of Strategic Studies, and of course Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome will be joining us as well virtually as we are taking up the discussion in a topic that we have decided to title it the Battle of Narratives, because we cannot keep on speaking the same thing over and over again expecting a different results. But Stephen Muau, of course, this comes at a time where on the 10th of November this year you organized picketing to the parliament buildings and of course to the Attorney General, correct, Bwana Stephen?
That is very true.
Yeah.
We did. We did as Amnesty together with NAMLEF, together with the Law Society of Kenya.
Yes.
And also other actors. Haki Africa was also part of that. And other actors, NAMLEF I think was the main actor within even these premises,
yeah,
where we talked about these issues. And we raised concerns. We even organized now, first of all, we had a workshop here where we talked about those concerns within the Jamia Mosque.
Yeah.
Then we now went to present the petition to the government actors who are concerned with matters to do with the security, including the office of the IG. We had also another one for Parliament. And the concerns were about what people are raising on these enforced disappearances. Yeah.
So the concerns is basically about the enforced disappearances, correct?
Yes.
And as you're pointing, so who exactly are you pointing the finger to, Bona Stephen?
Allow me to say, in
a nutshell.
In a nutshell, matters of security, matters of protection of Kenyans, matters of policing where Kenyans are, that is the work of the police.
Okay.
It is the police which has been given all the powers to protect the lives of Kenyans and also their properties. So the matters of concern to us is the role of the police in what is happening and what they are doing to ensure that therefore Kenyans live at peace. So we, in a nutshell, it's a question about how secure are Kenyans within Kenya when we have police officers who are given mandate by law.
The President of the Republic of Kenya came once on the national television saying that usalama unaanza na mimi na wewe. So for as much as we are pointing our fingers to the authorities to protect us and take care of us, at the same time, so I think it's important to discuss this matter objectively and look at what are other factors that might be contributing to this factor. And my interest is captured in a book titled Africa-Middle East Relations Study that Dr. Halkano Wario was also part when it was being launched, which captured a number of issues that might have led to the rise of radicalization and terrorism in this country at large. Dr. Halkano Wario, I'd like to welcome you first, just to give us a brief or rather executive summary, if you could just touch on what exactly is captured in the book to the interest of our viewers who might not have read it, and we kick off this conversation tonight. Dr. Halkano.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
This study covered the period from 2010 to 2019, and it basically looked at a number of relation issues between Middle East and Africa. And the study was titled African Relations, Interest, Strategies, Intervention, and Impact. And it's a very in-depth view of how Africa has been engaged in a relationship that has a longer period than, let's say, 20, 30 years, because the Swahili civilization predates Kenya's experience as a country by centuries. But essentially, this study tries to look at how countries are part and parcel of current political, social, economic, and also security-related both crises and development in the past 20 years. And this geopolitical interest by different Middle Eastern countries impact on Africa's security in diverse ways. The same way it also impacts on the ability of African countries to engage in economic investment with many from these countries investment. And now, related to our discussion today is the question of ideology, which is a very central discussion that we are having here in Kenya. How did we get here? It's a question that we need to ask ourselves. And here in Kenya, this is much linked with what happened in Somalia in the last 2 decades. There was victory for a couple of years. The regime collapsed in 1991. In the first 10 decades, it was characterized by warlordism. But then from mid-20s, there was this rise of violent extremist groups that appropriated religion for purpose of political ascendancy. And we see in the case here in Kenya and other parts of East Africa, the role of a group like Al-Shabaab being a very strong security that not only engages in similar kind of violence in Somalia, but our youth into their cause.
Okay.
So ideology is a very valid phenomenon, not to be mistaken with what exists as Muslims believe in.
Okay. Thanks so much, Dr. Halkano Wario, for that summary. Of course, we're going to delve deeper into that book and look at more factors that's going to meet up the whole conversation tonight. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, I'd like to rope you into this discussion. Of course, this is not the first time we are talking about matters to do with enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. It is very difficult to pinpoint to one thing, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, and I'm asking you this, one, as a Muslim scholar, two, as a legal practitioner, and three, as a member of Jamia Mosque committee in Nairobi. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, it is very difficult to pinpoint and say categorically that it's one thing that might have led to the enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, for that matter, in this country. However, because I'm saying this because we don't know the perpetrators. We don't know them. I wish I knew them, and I'd have asked them this question: why are you picking particular individuals from particular communities in certain areas? I would love to ask that question. But again, as an intellectual, as a sheikh, if pattern is anything to go by, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, what do you think would be a reason for such thing to be prevalent in the Muslim community, especially?
Faisal, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One thing that we need to that terrorism, violent extremism is a and when there is a problem like that, then clearly action needs to be taken. And the primary responsibility of ensuring that people are secure, their property is secure in this country, is the responsibility of the government. So when there is insecurity, whether through disappearances or through perpetration of violent extremism, of course, all of us look at the organ that has the primary responsibility of doing that under the Constitution of Kenya, and that is none other than the state. And action needs to be taken. And for me, from where I see it, saying action needs to be taken by looking under the underlying root causes, but we cannot use violence to fight violence. So we need to think about the strategies. And I'm happy now today in Kenya, we have a national strategy for countering violent extremism. And amongst the strategies that have been, if you look at the pillars of the strategy, you'll find that religion is one of them, ideology is the other one, culture, and many other ways of tackling this problem. Now, when there are these disappearances, and mostly you find people who disappeared, sometimes you hear those undertones because of being suspected of being involved in terrorism and the rest. Now, the question we ask ourselves, is this productive or counterproductive? If you ask me from where I see it, this is counterproductive. Can we embark more on the use of soft power? Because ideology cannot be fought through hard power. Okay, you are asking me a very difficult question about the pattern and the rest. Certain people are being targeted and the rest. From the pattern, of course, we don't want to speculate and maybe point an accusing finger towards maybe government or any other. But definitely, the government cannot escape blame because they should have answers. The government must have answers. The government is responsible to make sure that people are safe here. So when violent extremists penetrate and come to this country, government must give us an answer. And they must come up with solutions. And the solutions, Faisal, do not include also some form of terrorism also from the state. Okay? When people disappear also, we want answers. Answers should come not from me, again, from the organ that is responsible to ensure people are secure. So, whether we want it or not, Faisal, all of us will point at
the government.
Because resources to ensure people are secure are in the hands, they are the custodians of the resources that are meant to make sure that we are secure, both from the violent extremist group and also people are also secure from extrajudicial disappearances and execution. We need answers from the government. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. From the book of Radicalization into Violence Extremism into the Coastal Kenya, and I quote, it states that terrorism attacks in this country dates back to December 20th, 1980. This is an attack that took place at the Norfolk Hotel, and we had at least 20 casualties and give or take 80 people wounded. And of course, this was followed by the deadly attack in Kenya and Dar es Salaam against the US embassies. So if you're talking about the government of Kenya giving us answers, of course they have the resources, of course it is their responsibility, but they have failed to do so since 1980, December 20th. You know, so what will make them give us answer now? And that is why I must commend you, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, together with Dr. Halkano and Amnesty International, of course, and other state actors, for taking the initiative in your hands. And we have Dr. Halkano from the Horn Institute taking the front lead on research, and you, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, being the actors with the Building Resilience Against Violence Extremism, correct?
Yes, that's right, Faisal.
So I want to, again, Dr. Halkano, I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Stephen, but Dr. Halkano, based on the book, again, in Africa, Middle East Relations Study, and I quote, competition within the Gulf countries and Turkey has contributed to the destabilization and insecurity in some African countries, case in point, Libya and Somalia. It is very difficult to divorce or disintegrate the enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, increased acts of terrorism and radicalization in this country without mentioning the instability and insecurity in our neighboring Somalia. Correct, Dr. Halkano?
Yes. In the last couple of years, we're seeing Middle Eastern countries being a very critical player in security infrastructure in the Horn of Africa.
Exactly. So my question is, in this particular context, would you mind expounding what exactly do you mean by the competition within the African countries and Turkey in this context, increasing the insecurity and destabilization, especially in our neighboring country, Somalia?
Somalia has a very case of geopolitical interests coming together in one specific country that is already very much unstable. In 2007, there was the so-called groups of Middle Eastern countries against other groups of Middle Eastern countries. So we have Turkey, Iraq, Iran, and Qatar on one side, with the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and their allies like from the other side. So we see that competition reflected again in the support both state and non-state actors may have in conflict situations in the Horn of Africa. And so increasingly we see Middle Eastern countries being very much assertive in their role, not just in terms of economic investment, but also in how security issues are either solved or continually situated. And I think a case I think that we can point out is the crisis about the Ethiopian Grand Regency, the current conflict in Turkey, in Ethiopia about the conflict, the current crisis in Sudan about the coup. But just coming back home, and if I could add my voice to this discussion about extrajudicial killings. To provide security for the citizens and to ensure that these kind of incidences do not contribute towards methodologies that one extremist group will use in future in order to recruit and radicalize again further. Faisal.
Dr. Halkano, I think we are having issues there with Dr. Halkano. Suleiman, I'm kindly requesting if you could have a look at it. Dr. Stephen Muau back in studio. It's Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome said here categorically that the government must have answers to some of these questions. And it's true, given the resources and the taxes that we pay, the government, yes, indeed, they must have answers. It is their responsibility to protect us as the citizens of this country. It is our right, and we're not asking for that. That is why they should give us answers. But again, beyond making noise, beyond picketing, beyond press release, beyond making visits to the DCI office and other state actors in this matter, what else are you doing as Amnesty International? Because this is what has been happening for the longest time ever. A visit to the DCI, they deny responsibility, call out with press conference to the government and the police and security actors, they deny responsibility. This has been the case since 2011, and even before that. So beyond this, press conferences, picketing, what else are you doing?
Thank you. Yes, what we are doing is what Kenyans should be doing, not only us as Amnesty or even as any other agency. It is all Kenyans who should be doing it and demanding for accountability. I think the core issue that we are looking for in terms of this work, it is how do we enhance accountability within the rule of law. Within the National Police Service Act, for example, and I like what Sheikh Lethome has said, the strategy on counter violence, extremism had one critical aspect, which was involvement of communities in the war against terror. That was one of the foundations of why this strategy was very critical, to engage the members of the public within their localities and therefore be part of the policing process. So the concern and the issue that becomes of critical attention is how our security apparatus are involving and engaging the communities in ensuring that we are secure, we are safe as Kenyans. That's number one. And that's critical because it is required by law that the service must have community police committees within their localities, such that in the case of any action be taken, then the people who are involved in the community policing within their locality, they can be able to play a critical role and ensure that then accountability is ensured. It's not a question about saying individuals are terrorists. It's a question of saying how are the communities themselves participating and asking the hard questions about who they are living with and who their persons are, such that as the intervention which are being done by the state, then the people are coming to account. Number two, and this is a major issue for our country, Kenya signed the international convention. The National Convention on Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearances in 2007. That is when it was signed. However, that convention up to now has not been ratified. And that's one of the critical conventions which then we can be able to push the mechanism for accountability. As Amnesty, we have taken that as one of the major campaigns that we want to push for that convention to be ratified, because by ratification, then it links us to the committee of enforced disappearances under the UN mechanisms, where accountability can be pursued by Kenyans if they so wish, and say if the state is not protecting us, then the other avenues which can be used. We are even saying that because it's a question about accountability, other actors need to play a critical role, including demanding for some of those actions which are within this strategy, where every actor played a role in informing is development. So the ratification of this convention is very critical, because then it will lead us to asking how are we, the case which we are talking about, of the number which was given by Dr. Wario, the number that we have, and the number which are with the different actors. How do we coalesce that number and then demand accountability through the lines of accountability after the international platform? Allow me also to emphasize that within our constitution, which we gave ourselves, and this is why accountability is very critical, the rights of arrested persons are well guaranteed under Article 49. And at the moment we are to stick to the law, then it becomes very clear that we are working within the law, and whoever has committed any crime, and this has to be very clear, if we are not defending anyone who has committed a crime, but the law allows that if there's anyone who has committed a crime, let that person be arrested, let him be taken to a police station, let him be taken to court, let
within
the
24
court
hours.
determine, within 24 hours.
Okay.
And the court will now be able to determine what action now comes of that. And that's the rule of law which we are pursuing as Amnesty.
Great. Thanks so much, Bwana Stephen Muau. And being told that we need to go for a break. But as we are going for a break, I want you to think about, I can't seem to be getting my eyes off the book Africa and Middle East Relations Study, of course, by the Horn of Africa. And I'm just mind blown by a number of things that I'm just reading on this book. One thing that caught my eye, honestly, we cannot have this conversation normally. The whole conversation on extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, we cannot have it the way we've been having it. It's time to change tact and see if you can be part of the solution and no longer being part of the problem. There are more than 14 terror organizations in Africa. And part of it is being contributed by our brothers in the Middle East, directly or indirectly. You want to know more about that? Let's have this conversation after the break.
إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Kwa majina mimi naitwa Juma Omar. Mimi ndio chairman ya Baringo Muslim Forum ambayo imekuja pamoja kwa sababu ya kutaka kusaidia misikiti zetu zote za Baringo, na katika hizi misikiti zote ziko na challenges tofauti.
Hatuna nyumba ya maalimu, hatuna choo, sababu choo ile tunatumia ni ya mtu binafsi.
Sehemu ya ambaye kwamba hii ardhi ambaye kwamba tuko ndani yake ni ardhi ambayo sio yetu halali, hatujamiliki kabisa, lakini tuko na mpango ya kununua ardhi ambaye kwamba tuko nayo hapa kando. Kwa hivyo insha Allah biidhnillah tunaomba wafadhili popote walipo wajaribu kufikiria bila watatusaidia.
Shida yetu hapa tuko kuanja misikiti ambaye eka moja na hatuna misikiti, hakuna madrasa, hatuna maji.
Na kwa hakika yule ambaye kwamba anampatia Mwenyezi Mungu anamrudishia maradufu. Kwa hivyo tujitokezeni ndugu zangu, tujitokezeni popote penye tuko, tusaidieni Baringo.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back as we are discussing about the battling narratives. One narrative on one end is playing the victim mentality, of which, yes, we are truly victims of enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. But again, on the other hand, look at the matter objectively. So what might we have contributed to all this situation? And of course, bring in the aspect of external influences, and in this case we're bringing in the angle of the geopolitics. Just before the break we mentioned about the over 14 terror organizations within the continent that might be affected directly or indirectly by external players, and in this case this is a reference from the book Africa Middle East Relations Study, of course by the Horn Institute. Amazing research there, I must say. All these organizations, some of them might be as well inspired or wanting to be affiliated by the external forces. And for as long as there is instability in Somalia or in Sudan, then we should expect it to spill over in our country, particularly in Somalia, because of the ongoing Operation Linda Nchi, of course, happening outside there in Somalia. Dr. Halkano Wario, I'm going to give you a few minutes once again to just expound on this point, because there are some hard-hitting questions coming on your way, as Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome is preparing as well to receive some punches from me in studio. Dr. Halkano.
To draw a larger geopolitical angle to wanted to in Africa, we must see the problem as a global problem, most of its roots being in the Middle East. And in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen more affiliates of Daesh in West Africa, currently in DRC, than we have seen before then. Also see a lot of active Al-Qaeda linked affiliates in Africa, including Al-Shabaab, which has joined Al-Qaeda network in 2012. Now, aside from this geopolitical aspect of the link between terrorist groups here in Africa and other branches of the Middle East, also specific countries that are interested in certain political influencing regime change or certain understanding of Islamic administration in Africa. And this is basically pushed by countries that support certain political understanding of what governance should be. And I have in my vote for groups that have very strong Muslim Brotherhood kind of affiliated around what politics should be. And these groups are actually not just in North Africa, but also part of Horn of Africa. And so we should not forget the spectrum of that tries to push understanding of what political governance as far as Islam is, from just the radical understanding of what we want. But by and large, you can see Al-Qaeda is in Middle East, of course, in Pakistan and other places. Daesh itself started in Syria and Iraq. Now, most of its active affiliates are in West Africa or in the Sahel, and currently in Mozambique and DRC. What does this really tell us about the globality of terrorism and how we cannot be used from the geopolitical understanding of how these things happen? And so, what we found in the study is that most Middle Eastern countries are interested in economic development of their country, so they look at Africa as a place to invest. We have a very successful relation. But then if we put politics aside and look at the security nature, the support for state and non-state actors are also equally vibrant as is the economy. So the axis that support an understanding of political Islam also tries to compete with each other here on the African continent, and especially in the Horn of Africa. And I have in the of Turkey, Qatar, Iran kind of support that has for kind of link of politics vis-a-vis the other of Saudi, UAE, and their allies who also support political understanding of what future of Islamic governance in the region. And so to sum up, what we found quite striking in the study is the link is quite stark in terms of security situation and evolving security apparatus and theaters in Yemen or in Afghanistan at the moment, and similar kind of happening in Horn of Africa. And the third angle that we also find much interesting is the involvement of most of the current political crisis, say in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Sudan, in Western African countries, and also Northern Africa, push certain political understanding of how these countries should look at their future as.
So,
Faisal.
So my question to you, Dr. Halkano, is that this research gives a proper connection between the geopolitics, the terrorism, the terrorist organizations and activities within the continent that affects Kenya being part and parcel of the continent, especially the Horn of Africa, which is one of the hotbed. This information that you have, are you just talking it on your shelves? What next, Dr. Halkano? As researchers, are you sharing it with the state actors?
We did a big conference in August, and out of that, there were quite different actors that attended. The government was represented in the launch of this report. Ambassadors and diplomats from both Middle Eastern countries and African countries and the region. And we really engaged with a broad range of actors, including security agencies, development agencies that are involved in counter-violent extremism. But the idea we have is how can we ensure that the relationship between Africa and the Middle East is based on a symmetrical relationship that is inclined towards economic development of the country and not necessarily exploitative or one in which specific actors in the Middle East may support certain security in the Horn or other parts of Africa.
Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, you come in as being one of the active members of Building Resilience Against Violence Extremism. And
Yes.
from where you sit, because you said it's high time the government to stop using hard power to address the whole aspect of radicalization in this country, because if anything, it is counterproductive, correct?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
To the best of my knowledge, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, we've had this conversation and you've confirmed here before in studio that you are actively engaging in counter-narratives, correct?
Yes, Faisal.
Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, the fact that this issue is still prevalent in the Muslim community, it means there are still aspects of radicalization, for lack of a better word, or aspects of radicalization in the community. As a Muslim scholar, as a member of Brave, and as a committee member of Jamia Mosque, what do you have to say about the whole situation on radicalization in this country?
Faisal, one thing that we have to appreciate is that radicalization is not a Kenyan problem. As just like Dr. Halkano said, it's a global problem. Just like COVID-19 came, affected the whole world, each country responded to the pandemic in the best way possible. So as Kenyans, we have the responsibility of dealing with this reality in the best way we can, and not through knee-jerk reaction. It should be through properly thought out preventive and counter-violent extremism measures. What happened now, when we began these activities, we didn't have a strategy in place. Today we have a strategy in place. When we began these activities, there was a problem of looking at it as a problem that we can only tackle using the hard power. Today, with a strategy in place, with an organization like NCTC in place, with the research organization, think tanks like the Horn Institute in place, I think what we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, what are we not doing right? And Faisal, let me speak now as a Muslim religious leader. You see, it's very easy sometimes to sit back and blame the government. Question number one, first of all, we should ask ourselves, have we played our roles properly as religious leaders, and especially in correcting misconceptions about religion, and also clawing back some of the religious concepts that are being used by violent extremist groups? What I'm saying is that, can we play our rightful role? Our young people are the most vulnerable. They are at a risk. What are we doing to make sure that our young people are cushioned against violent extremist narratives? So we play our part. Then the government also should play its part, because no single player is going to win this battle. We need concerted effort from each player. Government has its role. It has to play its role well. We as religious leaders have a role to play. Parents have a role to play. Our young people also have a role to play, to be the keepers of one another, and also shun away from these violent extremist narratives. You see, what is happening? Violent extremist groups are doing what they are supposed to do: radicalize and spread their narratives out there. We should do what we're supposed to do. And Faisal, what I keep on wondering is that, can we borrow a leaf from Ethiopia? And I'm not talking about the political chaos that is in Ethiopia today. But when did you last hear that Ethiopia has been attacked? It is because I want to believe myself that every member of community in Ethiopia is involved in this. So it is the high time that each one of us, including you, the media, including you, Faisal, as the media, you play your role. I, as a religious leader, play my role. Dr. Halkano there, as a think tank organization, Horn Institute with Dr. Hanenje, they play their role in giving us the correct information. Okay, our youth also, we should build their capacity so that they
in a number of activities. I'm just picking it up from where Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome mentioned about governance and corruption. Do you think it plays a role in our local setup? Do you think it plays a role into the increased radicalization in this country?
Thank you. Thank you, Faisal. I think the connection between corruption and the war against terror is a major issue, and I can't denounce and say it doesn't. Competition everywhere in the world leads to so many dynamics, and one of it includes how people are fighting for power, how people are organizing for power, how people are governing themselves. And we have seen the cost of corruption in our country as being one of the major interests to any success, whether it is the success around governance whether it's success on the respect for human rights and the protection of human rights, whether it is the economic development of our country, whether it is development of our health sector, so many dynamics which come up with the corruption. And therefore, there is no way we are going to win this war if the fight against corruption is divorced from matters of governance and, so to speak, accountability. And why do I say so? If we are to respect institutions of governance, we have formed several of them in matters of corruption, in matters of policing. I do speak about the National Police Service now, we used to be a force. We have the Internal Affairs Unit of the police, a critical institution that have been formed. We have the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, an institution formed by the government to ensure that policing is accountable within our country. We have the ESCC talking about fight against corruption, and many other institutions which are really given clear mandates. The missing link, which I think all of us needs to really look at, is how do we ensure that we have ethical politics? How do we move to ethical dynamics of our politics where we are led by principles, we are led by values, and not individual interests? Because competing interests will always portend and danger for any country's development. To me, what we need to be focusing more as we move towards elections, it is how do we place some of these national issues, like countering violent extremism in our country, corruption, matters of enforced disappearances, matters of extrajudicial killings. How do we put them in the agenda of governance in our country and ask ourselves, what kind of leaders are we asking for in through these critical issues which Kenyans have? And with that, then we have a clear agendas through manifestos. We will scrutinize and ask those manifestos, to what extent do they then link with matters of which are critical concern to Kenyans, including respecting institution of governance, including respecting the war against corruption, and that has to be one of the major drives if we are to win this war. Respecting human rights, including now rights of people who are being arrested, including the participation of the public. I do remember there have been development of several documents, including public participation in the matters of our governance. To what extent are those documents becoming pillars for our development and governance in our country, such that the measures which are being put in place to fight any vices within the society then are anchored within policies, they are anchored within principles, they are anchored within the constitution and the values. Article 10 of our constitution is very clear. What really we talk about national values. So how do we move this debate to value-based engagement, where then the evidence becomes a critical actor to balance our institutional governance, to demand for accountability with the respect of the judiciary, with the respect of the oversight bodies which have been formed, including the constitutional commissions. And to me, if Kenya was to lay its foundation on those on the ground for its future and its development, then we get answers. It costs a lot to have so much research being done. It costs for a lot which has been done around development of these policies. But when it comes to implementation, we always spear off and get to the usual culture which you have heard. We have had also the issue about education. I have to mention that because again, Lethome has talked about this. How is our education system then getting grounded where the children, as they go to school, as they learn, then they are getting a different narrative from what we have heard in terms of coming to respect the values of humanity. And by that, as they grow in the primary, in the secondary, in the universities, then it becomes they are being led to values where they respect institutions, they respect each other, they respect even the organs of government, and they become national actors for development rather than the ideology of fear of competing and enforcing disappearances, disrespecting human rights. Then it becomes we are developing a country which is meant for a great future.
Okay.
We cannot compare ourselves with other nations. I think Kenya, we have a strong foundation to really address some of these concerns.
Thank you so much. Dr. Halkano Rio, again, basing on the book, Africa Middle East Relation Study that you released, key three things that you focused on, that is ideology, political, and economic. You gave an amazing study, and especially in the Horn of Africa, there are countries from the Middle East that are interested in dominating. They have dominant political interests, others dominant economic interests, other key policy instruments, among others, military presence, etc. This, in other words, are influencers to the current situation. Of course, they are the international influencers to the current situation for as far as stability, insecurity, et al. Is concerned in this country. However, knowing our nature as Africans and in this context as Kenyans, Dr. Halkano, what are your local solutions to try and ensure stability, peace and security in this country, bearing in mind, as a country, as a people, we are always wishing and running for handouts and humanitarian aid, assistance, donations, and this is something that's quite known and popular, particularly from our brothers in the Gulf countries. Dr. Halkano.
So in the study, we proposed, at least in Kenya, to approach the problem of asymmetrical relationships at least through four solutions. One is for Kenya to play strategic anchor state. What do I mean by this? All know that Kenya is a regional power. We can set standards of relations in our country and Middle Eastern countries. And being an anchor state, then we can be able to influence the kind of influences that can come to our continent, including ideological. Secondly, we need to develop strategic neutrality and pragmatic position when related to the country. We do not necessarily need to put all our eggs in one basket. We relate with people who are already having disagreements among them. How can we ensure that we have the both worlds without antagonizing one or the other of the positions dominant currently in Eastern politics? Thirdly, as a country, again, we need to promote multilateral approach to interregional engagement. What do I mean by this? When we see, for instance, in our neighboring country like Somalia, geopolitical interests are taking precedence over our own regional security, we have a responsibility as a country, as a neighbor to this country, to try to influence them to take a position that of the larger interest of the African continent, rather than being pulled into say Gulf crisis or other forms of engagement that they jeopardize our own security structure. And then finally, as a country, we need to advance a very strong economic diplomacy in relation to these countries. We have a very asymmetrical balance of trade. What a lot we export less. Ensure that as we can get better. Within that perspective, in terms of our ideology, I think we need to invest locally in terms of our religious structure, our religious leadership, to ensure that we have our own homegrown solution to the problem of radicalization and radicalism. And I agree with Sheikh Lethome's approach, responsibility to ensure that our kids are not exposed to this material. That's with us. But at the same time, the state also needs to engage with the Muslim community and to ensure that all kind of counter-terrorism and counter-violence mechanisms are done within the rule of law, so as not to add fuel to radicalization narratives that these are using to lure our youth right for their cause.
Thank you so much, Jazakallah Khair. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome, before you got interrupted with your connection, you were saying something about everyone playing his or her respective role to ensure the matter is put to rest. Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome.
What I'm saying is we cannot effectively deal with this problem of terrorism, just like any other problem that is facing communities, until each one of us recognizes that role to play. Government should accept that it has the primary role of ensuring there is security in the country, but on its own, government cannot deal with this problem. Remember, this is a battle of ideas, and ideology cannot be fought using tanks and guns. So you need also people who can help you in coming up with, first of all, understanding the violent extremism, but then developing effective and appropriate counter and alternative narratives in every player, because everyone is strategic. For our case, because violent extremist groups are misusing religion, religious leaders are a very strategic partner indeed in addressing the religious violent extremist. We need researchers like Dr. Halkano, so that whatever interventions we come up with, they are interventions based on information, correct information. We need media like you so that you can inform the society what the reality on the ground. So come up with messages that will help us deal with this problem. We need parents so that they can guide our young people. Remember, it is our young who are at risk of this thing. So in short, we need even to train our judicial officers. We need to train our law enforcement agencies so that instead of aggravating the situation, we come up, even as we respond to radicalization and violent extremism, we do so knowing that we are not creating a bigger problem. Like now, the problem that we are facing now, we are playing into the hands of violent extremist groups. When members of society disappear and there is no explanation, of course, when there is no information, there are no answers, people are bound to speculate. And of course, when people speculate, they tend to blame government. And it's very easy now for violent extremist group to come and start inciting communities against their government, divide and rule. So we need to approach this problem together. Government plays its role without emotions and without high-handedness and using the rule of law. That's why we have the Constitution of Kenya. That's why we have the appropriate laws. We no longer use the Penal Code. From 2016, now we have the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which is a special law to deal with this. So can we deal with this problem using the rule of law and allow everybody to play their right role, and together we shall win this battle. But when a section of the community feels that we are being targeted, then it is not helping the situation. So that is my plea, that is my message to everyone. Thank you, Faisal.
Thanks so much, Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome. Thanks so much, Dr. Halkano Wario. Thanks so much, Mr. Stephen. I'm actually a couple of seconds past my time tonight. But of course, I hope you, the viewer back at home, got to learn as much as I have. My current read, one study that I just finished reading is what I kept on referencing here a couple of times, time and time again. That is the Africa Middle East Relations Study. It can be found on the Horn Institute's website. Quite insightful. A lot of information I got to get from that particular study, and I advise you log on to that website and get yourself a copy. Go and read that book. There is another book that I'm reading currently, of course, still on the same matter. It's titled Radicalization into Violent Extremism in Coastal Kenya. Just for you to understand this issue, the whole issue. And I mean, as I said, let's read, let's get out there, and let's consume and get this information. It will put us in a better position to address and combat this whole issue of radicalization and terrorism. As Sheikh Ibrahim Lethome said, we all have a role to play. I have been challenged to play my role, and you as the viewer, as a neighbor, as a Muslim, as a member of this community, are you playing your role? My name is Faisal, Kassim, and this is the live Real Talk. See you next week, same time, as we are having yet another conversation that would be interesting to none other but you who are ears alone. See you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Quote of the day. Uthman bin Affan